Good morning, Bridgit. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. The SAB Foundation have provided a huge amount of support for various companies and organizations, including DiSA over the years. What inspired the awards and how did you come about it?
SAB Foundation has a very specific mandate. One of our focus areas is people with disabilities. We focus on entrepreneurship specifically. And so the Disability Empowerment Awards, actually, I started them because there wasn't nearly enough attention being drawn to issues around disability. So we wanted to create a specific category of awards to hopefully start getting people talking around disability and issues affecting people with disabilities. So we launched it. Initially, we just had a general social innovation awards, and then we launched the Disability Empowerment Awards in 2017.
Okay. The SAB Foundation have several programs. Can you give us an overview on these programs that help women, the youth, people in rural areas, and persons with disabilities?
Sure. So we have, it's all entrepreneurship that underpins everything that we do, but we have kind of three broad areas of focus. The first one is really trying to unearth entrepreneurs right across the country, and we really try and source entrepreneurs from disadvantaged areas, rural areas, small towns, and we build those businesses up through a bit of financial support and very intensive training programs that are 18 months long. On that program, we make sure that they are 100% inclusive, and whatever is required for people with disabilities to participate, we make sure that we are as inclusive as the program needs to be. And so, we welcome entrepreneurs from right across the country, youth, women, and people with disabilities. So that's the one category. Then we have our Social Innovation and Disability Empowerment Awards, and that's really where we're trying to find social solutions to problems in the country through viable business models. So we really are looking at businesses that can solve social problems at scale if we help and invest in them. So with disability empowerment specifically, it's really interesting because we kind of look at two areas. One is to improve quality of life for people with disabilities, and that ranges from quite a lot of assistive devices that are much more affordable. We look at anything that creates access for a person with a disability to actually participate in the economy. And then we also look at organizations that are creating employment for people with disabilities. Then the last area we look at is we have a focus on quite strategic farming projects in rural areas.
South Africa has a higher failure rate with small businesses, with 70 to 80% of small businesses failing within the first 5 years. How does the SAB Foundation help entrepreneurs with disabilities to scale up their businesses long term?
Our business failure rate is very low. It's probably under 10%. And I think the reason for that is that what we've tried to do is address the key reasons why businesses do fail. And those are fairly, they're fairly common across any kind of business. Whether you're a disabled entrepreneur or someone who's not disabled, you're still an entrepreneur, right? Mm-hmm. And so essentially it's really access to proper skills, learning how to run your own finances, access to markets, mentorship and coaching plays a big role in helping entrepreneurs strategize around where it is they want to go and how they're going to get there. And then, of course, I think the early stage funding that we provide really helps to accelerate the growth of a business, because what it's used for is really something that's very catalytic. So, for example, I always use the example of a laundromat where we had a lady who used home-used washing machines, and she had this little laundromat in Messina. And just through the purchase of a few industrial washers, she was then able to provide a laundry service for multiple lodges in the area, and her turnover went up 200%. So it's really, that's the intention of the funding, but you have to wrap around all of that support with the entrepreneur and to help them actually to think differently about how they can grow and where they need to grow. And I think also bringing people together into a peer environment, they start to do business with each other. That's also really helps. But yeah, I think that, the business failure rate is really because of a lack of those kinds of very important areas that are needed at an early stage in the business. So I think that's hopefully where our strength lies.
Yeah, definitely. Running these programs must take a huge effort from various parties to be the success that they have been. Can you highlight some of the partnerships that you've had over the years that has assisted the foundation to be as successful as they have been?
Sure, we definitely couldn't do any of it without partnerships. And so we have I think one of our strengths is that our partnerships are very long-term partnerships. So when you choose long-term partners and you work with them over time, you learn and you grow together. And you also are able to look at continuously doing new iterations of things that create constant improvement. So we work with Vitola. They train all of our entrepreneurs from across the country in the rural and urban settings that I mentioned. We work with a team called Further that do all the mentoring and coaching from the social innovation and disability empowerment work. And then we work with various consultants in farming. With the disability empowerment and the social innovation awards, what I didn't mention earlier is that while that is the first step that we work with innovators, we then actually allow them to access a second round of funding and business training if they start to grow. And that's called our Social Innovation Fund. And there we work with an organization called Impact Amplifier. And then, as mentioned, we work with Mode, which does specifically training of entrepreneurs with disabilities. But I think it's two things. I think it's the longevity of the partnerships. The other thing is constantly measuring how entrepreneurs are doing. So we take that very seriously. So we get feedback. As you know, you would have had to fill in these very annoying surveys, which we get lots of complaints about, but they give us such valuable information. So we track every single entrepreneur that ever gets support from us for 5 years. So, and we ask them, what's working for you? What's not working for you? Where can we improve? And so that allows us, with our partners, to continuously improve the service that we're offering. And I think we're also very, very clear that, and this is something that I really instill in my team, is that it's very easy for us to sit in our air-conditioned offices and dish out cash. We're not the ones doing the hard work. And I think, so for us, the most fundamental principle that I have instilled in the foundation is that of servant leadership, and that we are there to serve entrepreneurs who are out there doing the hard stuff, choosing the tough path, creating the jobs. So that, I think all of that works together.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. You must have seen a fair amount of success over the years. What has been the highlight for you overseeing the SAB awards, our foundation awards, and any businesses that have stuck out for you?
I often get asked that question, and it's a terrible one to try and answer, because I have seen so many incredible success stories. But having said that, we've only been at it for 10 years. And I think that businesses take quite a long time to become big businesses, particularly in the social innovation space, because we're working with businesses that are often pre-revenue. But for me, the solutions that are provided, I enjoy them just because they're interesting. I love seeing that young people are thinking about things differently to our generation and how you can solve problems using technology, and how that enables a scale that we have never seen before. So all of those things, I think I'm excited about. I feel just as passionately about what Disability Info South Africa is doing as I do about, what a company we've supported called Vula Mobile, which is connecting health practitioners from all over the country together that are diagnosing and treating patients. They've just treated their millionth patient using tech. And it allows a rural patient to access a specialist sitting in a public sector hospital in 15 minutes instead of in a 3-month queue waiting list. So I think we've got education innovation where alternatives to expensive tutoring for parents who can't afford a tutor, and this just makes it a fraction of the cost. And then I love some of the, like, I Love Coffee, which employs people that are deaf. I think that's an amazing organization. Yeah, so I think the list for me goes on and on and on. I think the challenge is I don't think we have enough support for early stage innovation in South Africa. And I think we need to, as a country, really focus on it more, because reaching scale takes a lot of energy,
Yeah. Entrepreneurship can be a long and difficult job. What advice would you give persons with disabilities? Would you recommend that they become entrepreneurs? And what advice would you give them once they've decided that's the route they want to go?
It is a challenging road, entrepreneurship, because there's no salary coming every month consistently that you can rely on. But I think if somebody is very self-motivated, I think it always depends on the type of person that you are. And some people are much more suited to it than others. I feel like rebels make very good entrepreneurs. I think it really is, I think sometimes it's out of necessity. Like, for example, if you can't get to and from a job, figuring something out that you can do from home in front of a computer. I think there are a lot of people that have managed to make a really successful career that way. Is a wonderful thing to do. I think, but entrepreneurship is not for everybody, and I think I would like to see people choosing it because they're inspired by it, and it's something that they would rather work for themselves and grow something of their own rather than work for a boss. But obviously, we live in a country where there's very high unemployment. There's very high unemployment in the disabled community, and so I think choosing it as a viable option is a really good option to consider. I think the thing is really about if you don't have a business, one of the most challenging parts is coming up with the idea. Like, what's my big idea, that I'm going to do? And I think one of the things I would always say to someone who's considering this path is just look around your community. What are the problems you identify? What are the services that are not available that you think should be available in your area? And start from that. In this country, there are a lot of options available to help you if you are an entrepreneur. There's a lot of, the government has agencies, there's private, every corporate in South Africa has a focus on entrepreneurship in some way, shape, or form. And what I have seen is that entrepreneurs get a lot of support on their journey. And so really it's, if that is something you want to consider, it's really about tapping into all of that, those free resources that are available. I mean, there are so many conferences, entrepreneur conferences, training programs, all of that sort of thing. So it's really about tapping into that.
Great. Thanks very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alan. Such a pleasure.
As we celebrate the resilience and creativity of entrepreneurs with disabilities, let us continue to foster an environment of inclusivity and support in South Africa, where everyone has the opportunity to thrive and contribute to the economy. If you would like to find out more about entrepreneurship and the companies and organizations that provide support to persons with disabilities starting their own businesses, please feel free to visit the DiSA website at www.disabilityinfosa.co.za or email DiSA on info@disa.org.za. Thank you